Let me begin with as you can see, the title of this presentation is Student Engagement, a look at some practices. Let me begin with what to me is student engagement. My meaning of student engagement is in the context of fulfilling the course objectives, which I believe is true to both online and offline or residential classes. So I look at student engagement as having these three meanings. The first one refers to the acquaintance with the course objectives. From my point of view, this precedes everything in the course. When the student is engaged, is acquainted with the course objectives, this engagement can be encouraged from the students. The other meaning of student engagement to me has, in reference to the course objectives, has reference to the activities for the students that were designed by the teacher to fulfill the objectives. For me, when the student is actively participate in those activities to fulfill the objectives, then the student is engaged. And the last meaning for me of student engagement has reference to assessment. If the students are fulfilling the objectives, and from my point of view, the student's perspective is for learning rather than passing the course. And I would look at it as more, from my point of view, is the goal of education, that the students learn rather than pass the course. And for this sharing, I will be focusing on the activities for the students to fulfill the objectives and encouraging their participation. So this is described as sharing of some practices in the online setup. And I would want it not to be prescriptive, but sharing experiences from which you may pick up some ideas as you proceed to blended or fully online learning. Those, as mentioned by the Chancellor, those are my experiences teaching online for 15 years using a learning management system, or LMS. You should be familiar with what an LMS by now, as you have heard from the previous lecture. And what we're using at UPOE is powered by Moodle, or the Modular Object-Oriented Dynamic Learning Environment. And these practices that I'm going to share is from a certain point of view. It means that this is framed by my substantive area, which is organizational communication. So from communication viewpoint, teaching and learning is a communication event. In the context of online education, the nature of that communication is a mediated communication, and that is the mediation of technology. And in the sharing that I'll be doing now, the learning management system, or Moodle, mediates that communicative interaction. So what I will do is a show and tell from an ongoing course. And that course is a graduate class that aims to prepare students to undertake graduate research, their thesis or their dissertation in particular. And that classroom is, I take that classroom as a workshop where the students are like apprentices learning the craft of the trade. And it is asynchronous. It's not real time. So the discussions are in the form of a threaded discussion. And that course runs for 14 weeks. So let's look at the organization and interaction that happens, or how the course is organized. And let's look at the interaction that happens in the course. Let me go to my course site. All right. Okay. So I did not show you anymore how to enter the course site. I assume that you have seen it earlier. So here you can see, let me show, tell you, now that I'm showing, let me tell you now how this looks like. Okay. So if you will notice, this work space is personalized. You can see my photo there, not to scare my students, but to let them realize that, there's a real person that is there, and that there's a classroom where there's a teacher, and there's a teacher who has designed learning, not fixed, but a flexible kind of learning. And you will also find there that there's a folder for getting to know the class members. So this is a way for me to know who my students are, and for my students to know the members of the class. So I don't know whether you want to have a look at it, but let me see. Yeah, so here is how it looks. No? And then, okay, as you will notice, the workspace or the course site is divided into topics. Now, so there's topic 1, topic 2, and the topic 1 is the introduction to the course. From my point of view, student engagement begins in an organized learning space. So you can see here the course goals and objectives very clearly. When the student enters the class, they know this is like a contract, a social contract with the students, that for this particular course, this is what we're going to do, and these are what we wish to accomplish, we are aspiring to accomplish, and to be assessed at the end of the course. You can also find here, so you see here the course goals, and the course outline, and the references. You will also see that for each of this, so the course, let me go back, I hope you don't get dizzy. So there are 3 units here, units 1, 2, and 3. And those 3 units are spread across the 14 weeks. And you can see here what is Unit 1, and what are the modules under Unit 1 with very clear objectives, and what are the particular activities that the students are going to engage in, as well as the schedule. As you can see here, this is the current semester. And then you will find also that the whole workspace presents what will happen in the whole semester. Although the unit is revealed as the course as the time goes by. So we have here, for instance, the first unit, and its availability was from the 21st of January. So the student can see already when this course will be available. And if they refer to their course schedule, they know that this will run until, this unit will run until to the 16th of February. So in this unit, they can already, for instance, the class has not started yet, but the student would already have an idea of what will happen in the course. And so I would provide the introduction to the unit, and the concepts that are important to the unit. As you can see in, the screen is not readable. Oh, right. Okay, so we go back to the, I hope you will not get dizzy again, but let me show you just because I got this information that the screen is not clear, but it doesn't show all of the, I'm not, yeah. Okay. Could I ask if the screen is now readable to our viewers? Yes. All right. So just to show you the course goals are already stated at the very first window of the workspace. Just to repeat, I said that the student engagement begins in an organized learning space. So the course goals and objectives are seen here. And then I mentioned about the getting to know the class members. I will not show you that anymore. So you can, the students can see the course outline and references. And the course activities and schedule, as I mentioned, for the 14 weeks, all of this are already laid down on what will happen. And Unit 1 is from what day to what day. And the objectives for each modules are identified. So, and then when you look at the main body of the course site, of the workspace, there are restrictions on when the student would be able to view the inside of the topic or of the unit. But they can, at the beginning of the semester, they can already see all of the class, all of the course. So I'll just show you, give you, I'll scroll this down for you to see what is the course, how does the course look like. But they cannot enter yet, but they are already given a heads up on what will be done for that particular activity, for instance, a forum. And so what we will be discussing already, so the student can have a preparation when the time for the forum comes. So just to give you an idea, so all of these units are plotted across the course site. You can see here the 900 post, meaning because this is the week of 10 to 22nd March, so you can see that there's still posts that are unread by me. I will read it after this presentation. And this is the third unit. And then you can see that the fora are not yet open, but the students can already, because for this particular fora on Module 5, that particular forum will open on the 24th of March, but the student can already see what will happen there. And then what would be the requirement, the final paper for the course? It's already, can already be found. And also, what are expected in those particular requirements. There are two here. And as I said, a good or an student engagement begins in an organized learning space. So the course activities across the semester are identified and that the course assessment is clear. So even the assessment criteria for the assignments are already available to the students. This is how this grade assessment would look like. And, oh, I don't want to show actually the name of the student, but pardon for my student, please pardon. And there you will find the rubrics and the points assignment. There's a problem hanging out. I am with this one. This one? I should not notify the student because the student may think that I'm already grading. There. All right, so you can see in this assessment that the course objectives are laid down and how many points are to be allotted for each of these objectives. So there are two assignments or final paper. So the first paper for course objective 1, 2, and 3, and then laid down there. But I will not belabor here because Prof. Kichi will be talking about it later. All right. So let me now show you the interaction that happens. I will focus on only one interaction that is practiced in this particular course. I can tell you that in the UP Open University, the faculty, each faculty has its own way of engaging the students. So this is just what I'm doing on this particular course. This is a discussion fora. The activities are discussion fora. And and the fora are also organized, as you can see here. Let me show you the first forum under Unit 1. So this forum is on discourses on communication research, and this happened between 28 January and 9 February. So the student could already see what we will do here, on what questions they're going to answer, and what would be the questions that will be asked. Let me just read on this module. I think you do. Wait, huh? Okay, sorry. Yeah, do you see? I hope you see. So here, I would provide an introduction that would connect them to the unit. So in the introduction to the unit, I have provided a summary of each of the 4 discourses in communication research. So the student now has to review the empirical material in your substantive area, because in communication, there are various substantive areas. There's mass communication, development communication, public relations, and ORGCOM, my field, organizational communication, and then some more others, are available in online journals or in other sources within their reach. So what types of research or study are being done? That's a question that they will have to ask when they review these materials, and what knowledge or discourse do these studies privilege. And we shall be discussing the studies done in your substantive area or field of specialization or topic of interest for each of the 4 discourses. And I have created a thread for each discourse. So let's have a look. I've shown you this earlier, but okay, this is not very sure. All right, I think this is the biggest so far that I can show you. Could you see it? Are they able to see that, guys? Yeah. All right, so you can see here that I provide a handle at the introduction. So I would repeat what is written on the workspace introductory page, and I would repeat it in the forum. So you will, what I have read is basically the same. However, there is an additional, sorry. But I have here, I pinned one post that nobody can change because it gives them an instruction or a direction or a guide on what the threads, because there are going to be 4 threads would this threads require. So I said here, please be guided by the following when posting at the threads. This is just a repeat of what I have said in the introduction. As I said in the introduction, so as you can see here, I do a lot of repetitions. So in an online setup, we cannot assume that the students have already paid attention to what you have written at the beginning. So you repeat it inside the forum. So as I said in the introduction, etc., and then in the module, our interest, because based on my previous experiences, I would already caution the students, because there's a tendency for the student to just post anything in the forum because they thought that the fora are graded. But in my case, I do not, that is not part of their grade. The fora for me are part of the activities to accomplish the learning objectives or the course objectives. The assessment is another thing for me, and that is, as I've shown earlier, those are the two final papers. So this is, so this fora is for the students to be guided, the zero, what the threads require. So I would explain as clearly as possible. In Module 1, our interest is to know the dominant discourse in your substantive area. And then I would describe what the dominant discourse are: those privileged by the studies. That is, by situating in a certain discourse, a study privileges the knowledge over others. Later in the next forum and on Module 2, we shall discuss the discourses muted. That is, knowledge is muted since no studies or empirical studies are done in the particular substantive area of the students. If you will notice, I would provide them, I would articulate what would happen here and what would happen next, so that the students would not post yet what we will be discussing in the next fora, or in the next forum, sorry. So, and then thus, there are 4 threads. So I would describe what this discussion, how this discussion forum would look like. To see which knowledge is privileged, all right. And then for each of the threads, the interest is, so again, I would belabor and articulate. The interest is analysis of a study that illustrates that such discourse is dominant in a particular substantive area. This would require familiarity with the studies in one substantive area. This is why I said at the introduction to each of the threads to review the empirical material in your substantive area available in online journals or in other sources within your reach. So this would also tell them what is required of them outside the workspace, the online workspace, that they have to go out, they have, prior to entering for the next, for this particular forum, they should have already reviewed the empirical materials in their substantive area. So this one, and then I would have a different folder for each of the discourse. Well, it depends on how you would organize yours, but this is how I organize mine. Just don't bother about my students, who they are, because we don't want this to be, with the data privacy and all. But you see here, if you look at the right side, I hope you can see it, there are our discussion here is very engaged, particularly in discourse of representation in thread number 1. There are 72 replies, which include the students and mine. So just to have an for you to have a look at it. So you can see that I use a different font color when I participate in the forum, because I myself participate in the forum. So you can see after this student posted very, very long, but I would have a very short reply and a further guidance. No? So you can see this is a very long thread because there's a very active participation among the students. And for each of the reply, I would have my own, yes, I would have my own here. So you may be asking, the students are just communicating with me. If I mentioned at the beginning, because I take this course, this particular course, I have other courses that are not research courses, that in this particular course, I take the classroom as a workshop, no? Where the students are apprentices learning the craft of the trade. So as the master craftswoman, I have to guide the student on how they should be reading the empirical material when the discourses of communication research are used as a lens. All right, so I will not look at the other folders anymore. I will just give you the other, share with you the other practices that I'm doing here. If you will notice, the time allotment is on the forum, no? Not on the threads. So this is one practice that I do. The student can post in any of these threads within this particular time. But if you will notice, I go to another forum, and you will find here that the fora are timed. For each of the thread, they are timed. Okay. Here. So this is under Unit 2 on quantitative communication research. I will not read any more what's written here, just to show you that for each thread, as you can see here, the time allotment is for each of the thread rather than for the whole forum. No? So you will, and then looking at the replies again, you can see here the very active engagement of the students. Just for the highest thread here is thread 3, teleological assumption that happened between 3 to 5 March. And there are already 53 replies from my students and from me. Then the next one is I ask for pardon from any one of my students whom I will use as an example here. So I would have again an introduction, and then someone would reply, and then okay, this one is not a good, an example. I would say the name of the student, because at times, this is my experience, not this particular one, let me see. Because at times the students get confused if my reply is for them or for someone else. But yeah, okay, I will explain why I cannot see now the names here, because we are already in Unit 2. You know, the students already got the familiar with how I handled my fora, so maybe I should go back to my to the forum in the first unit and show you how I do the reply to the students. Okay, taking time. This is very important. This is something we don't do in offline or in our residential classes. Let's just go back to the same module, and then here. Oh, yeah. So I would say here, thank you for your post, John. John is from UP also. And so you see, this particular question, reply is for John. I would do that at the beginning of the semester. And although I would do that also throughout the semester if I feel the need that the students need to be directed to my particular question, like could you share a particular study, etc. So, all right. The other one is why do I do that? Why do I have this time allotment? From my experience, having an allotment time for discussion, and when the student posts on time, they get comment from me. No. I mean, because of my, I believe this is everybody's experience in UPOE. We are overloaded. We are carrying 60 units or so. And so we are, our time for our teaching, we have to discipline ourselves as well. So between a particular time, if I say it's between 28 January and 9 February, I would reply to the post of the students within that period. Although at times when I'm not very busy, I would go back and still reply. But as a standard operating procedure for me, I reply particularly those posted within the time period. And you know, my experience after a month or so, or maybe less than a month, the students would already try to post on time. If they want an engagement with their teacher, so the students would post on time so that they can communicate and interact with me. So, and I find it, you know, it's very enjoyable, I can tell you. Teaching in the online environment is as exciting as in the residential and the classes as well. You create a social relationship with your students, and I enjoy very much my interaction with my students. And then there's another one I will not show you anymore. When the student posts, I would use, now my students now, if they are watching now, I saw one or two watching, I would always say good start. The purpose here is you encourage the student for the effort that they have done. No? So when the student posted and you look at it, that there's really thinking that happened before posting, then you encourage the student and say good start. And then if I would require some more from the post, I would ask that question. I hope you have seen what I have asked earlier. Could you suggest a particular study? And when the student has replied to my comment, then I would say, and I would require some more elaboration. I would say good progress, because the student has spent effort to really learn what and be guided by what me as a teacher has said. So I maybe I'm worried about the time, but this is how this is what happened in the interaction. I will now go out of the show and tell and go back to my to a summary and give more time for questions later on. All right, so let me have a summary of what I have shared with you. In terms of organization, from my point of view, student engagement begins in an organized learning space where course goals and objectives are seen, course activities across the semester are identified early on, and course assessment is also clear. And in terms of interaction, I'll just repeat what I have said. As a summary, organize classroom discussions, provide handles at the introduction or even across the discussion, having an allotted time for discussion, post made on time, get comment, and my observation as a student try to post on time. And then first person mention the name at the reply to avoid confusion, use color to differentiate my post from the student's post, good start, good progress, comments, and then make a summary. I did not show you that anymore. In some of my courses, if I don't have an introductory handle, I would have a summary handle at the end. So what have I observed in this many years of experience teaching online in terms of student engagement? Active teacher engagement breeds active student engagement.